Hi, my name is Christin Heamagi, and I work as a maritime archaeologist at Maritime Archaeology Trust and our commercial arm, Maritime Archaeology. While you are familiar with the background of the Maritime Archaeology Trust, you might not know that Maritime Archaeology Limited was set up in 2003 as a non-profit commercial subsidy to the Trust. Since the start in the early noughties, we've been working on a wide scale of offshore developments. And over the last 10 years, our focus has been very much on the offshore renewables industry. Today, I will be talking about how we've used our experience of education and outreach by working with the public and bringing that into the commercial field and developing training sessions relevant to personnel in the offshore industry ahead of offshore works. The data collected, for example, by underwater remote vehicles, ROV, or offshore boreholes can and should be used by archaeologists in the environmental process, not only to mitigate the impact on underwater cultural heritage, but also to contribute to a greater understanding of our maritime past. Before the COVID-19 limitations on travel, I used to make my way either to the offices of the developer of an offshore contractor or to the vessel before sailing to ensure that the right personnel would be available. This map shows my work-related travel in the busy year of 2019. The presentation and training that I provide is always project specific and tailored to the type of offshore works the crew is about to undertake. I would normally start with going back to basics and get the participants involved talking about archaeology and shipwrecks. I draw on recent research and I present past projects as examples. But I also need to ensure that the personnel are aware of the legal requirements set out in the Marine Plan by the Receiver of Wrecks under the Merchant Shipping Act of 1995 and the recommendations outlined by UNESCO. Archaeology isn't always the most engaging subject to talk about, especially when the audience perceive that I will either tell them about old dusty things, stop them from doing their work, or even worse, add more tasks to their heavy workload. Being aware and breaking down those perceived barriers is therefore very important to keep the audience engaged and ensure that following the presentation, the important points have registered with the crew. I've also learned from other presentations, as I often undertake my talk just ahead of the Unexploded Ordnance UXO safety presentation, where I've noticed that the interest is slightly higher from some participants. I toyed with the idea of adding more things that go bang to my presentation. But instead, I settled for some jokes on the first Brexit when talking about Holocene sea level change, and mentioning Tinder when the C14 dating slide is on the screen. But to really ensure that I capture people's interest, I make sure that I mix the important but maybe less interesting parts with stories. Stories of shipwrecks, stories of archaeological discoveries, and stories of people. While traveling is not an option at the moment, we have continued the communication with offshore staff by a combination of videos, which are shown to the relevant staff on board, as well as live sessions with offshore management. The jokes and direct engagement levels have dropped, as it's hard to know if anyone is really listening, especially when everyone on the call is on mute, and it really feels like you're talking to yourself while they are all Instagramming pictures of their favorite cats. But saying that, some of the best feedback we've ever had has been from clients who've seen the video that we provide them with and gone through the presentation online. We've also noticed an increase in data of archaeological potential from the offshore vessels. I would therefore like to share with you some of the exciting artifacts that this training scheme and the following archaeological assessments have helped discover, record, and preserve. The first object is an anchor found on the seabed, and here represented in a 3D model. Sometimes you're lucky enough to find small objects. This is a ship's fastening found on the seabed. And the last object I would like to share with you is a 19th century bottle. So to summarize, the challenges of 2020 have so far taught us that despite missing the 2-star comfortable hotel at Clacton-on-Sea, being pushed to develop our methods and ways of communication is not bad at all. So thank you for listening, and see you all through a screen very soon.